everybody. Shaman.
I'm Julie Dumois-Sands.
That's beautiful. We're from Harper Therapy. And this month, we are talking about grief.
And I wanted to talk about grief because I think a lot of us are dealing with different kinds of losses. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of them are unacknowledged.
Right.
We're used to the kinds of losses if someone loses a spouse or a child.
The big grief.
Yeah.
Right.
The big G, right? But I think we need to talk about the smaller kinds of grief that we all deal with that impact us. And I was thinking especially people always talk about COVID as being over.
Sure.
But I don't think it is. I think people's different working environments and how relationships have changed are part of that loss.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. The world has changed since 2020. Mm-hmm. And it seems like it's still constantly changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was probably changing before that all the time too, but I think that was definitely a line in the sand, right?
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about loss and talk about recovery from loss. Most of us know about the work of Elisabeth Kubler-Ross, and this is a different paradigm to talk about loss. It's the work of Paul Denniston and grief movement therapy. So as a way to use your body to help process loss.
So like physically moving and yoga-esque?
Yoga-esque.
Yeah.
Paul Denniston is a yoga teacher, and he has developed grief movement therapy, and he includes asanas, which are different yoga postures and movement postures.
Oh, I was going to ask you what that is. Thanks.
Yeah, to help the body process loss. So, especially at Harper Therapy, we work with a mind-body connection, and so this is like turning to the mind and the body to help process loss and to help heal and return to wholeness.
Right. So it's like a whole like system in its own. Like this is a good way to deal with. Now, would you say this is great for little g griefs and big G griefs?
Yep.
So it's like grief period and loss.
Yeah, grief period.
Right. Because I think we could even go into like grief. I think a lot of people don't even know. I mean, you can grieve the loss of a relationship, the loss of a job. I mean, there's so much because we just think of it's just like a family member died or.
And I think it's other things too that we rush through. Do you remember during COVID walking into Publix or the grocery store and the aisles were empty?
Yeah, it's weird.
The shelves were empty, right? So that's like the loss of security.
Right.
And I think we've motored past that, but haven't really addressed what did that mean to lose that sense of security.
Right. So like the grief of just the norms that you build around yourself, whatever those might be, right? Yeah, and I think that's a big part of just grief period. Even particularly the big G's, it's those moments, those normalative, like this is how my life was, and it's never going to be that way again.
Yeah.
And how do I deal with that change?
Yeah, so even slowing down enough to know that this is what's going on for me. What are the things that have changed or that I've lost?
Right. So I think this should be a really, really cool conversation over the next few weeks.
Sounds good.
And we do grief, like here. Like we do feelings, we do emotions, we do anxiety, we do couples, we do teens, trauma, and grief is like, I think it could touch on all of those aspects, right? Like grief is such a bear. I guess it's been about 6 years ago now. I lost my father to ALS. And I don't think I had ever really felt grief like that. Just the spaghetti, like throwing spaghetti against a wall is how it feels. It's just so all over the place, right? Like 1 minute you're fine, the next minute you're upset, the next minute you're angry, then you're fine, then you're just like, it makes no sense. And it's like waves and it comes and goes. And 6 years later, it's still like that from time to time, right? Like, grief is big and you got to do some work to like really so I'm really excited to see what like this does. This is this whole conversation about the physical
way to work through
it. So if you could use some help with grief, we do that here at Harper Therapy, 813-434-3639, and we'll see ya.